Ooh. All right. Good evening, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well this evening. I want to thank everyone for choosing to schedule this webinar for this time, even though I feel like it's pretty much late. And I'm grateful that you guys decided that we have this conversation in line with breast breast milk weaning. And I do understand that some mothers can find this particular experience a little bit challenging, and because our core focus is in line with mental health support and reducing the triggers that might lead to a mental health disorder for a mother, especially surrounding the lack of information about a particular experience during the breastfeed, during the perinatal period, which is the pregnancy, the postpartum, and the preconception period. Obviously, it's a combination of all of those things that might lead to a kind of stress that might be a trigger. So one of those things maybe, understanding the weaning phase, like getting your baby off breast milk. What is really weaning? It is getting your baby off breast milk. And sometimes mothers think that it is something they do abruptly, or something they do with, you know what, you're done, we're not giving breast milk again, let's move over to solids. Because some mothers don't know how to navigate that particular experience, it is important to teach it. And I think we've had this conversation before, and we have not one of the reasons why we decide to bring these conversations on here is because sometimes you can be typing in the group and people don't really get to understand you. So sometimes it's best to have the conversation live like this and you know share it in a more realistic way. When you say something, people get to learn better. So right now we're going to start. I'm trying to wait for our mothers to join in, but I'm just going to start. Please, if you're joining in, let me know where you're joining in from, and let me know your name so I know if you're coming from the community or not. Yeah. So thank you for joining in. Today I'm going to be talking about how to wean your baby. How are you a mom considering how to wean without stress? This webinar will help you easily wean. So what are the basic arc to weaning your baby off breast milk? Basic. And I've said this, if you go through my feed right now on YouTube, you will see that I said it categorically, and it is what I always say to most mothers. Take out the anxiety. That is the number one arc. Just reduce anxiety of trying to get it. You know that thing that we always do, like, you know what, let's get this thing done and dusted and then move on to something else. That idea of always wanting to rush through something, that idea of always, especially when it has to do with children and infants or toddlers, it's a different thing entirely. And I think it's you putting yourself up for stress when you start applying anxiety to any experience that you're trying to do with a child. So with the winning, the same thing, I repeat, don't do it anxiously. And the second arc to which you can use to win easily is to understand that your baby is going to be having a new meal that they have never had before, or is going to be testing something different. They might like it, they might not like it. The idea is to watch and observe how they react to it and not force feed. Please, no matter the age of your child, never force feed. If you don't show anxiety to your child will know that everything is well. But when you start showing anxiety that there's something wrong, they would start fearing and start kind of shifting away, thinking there's something wrong. And they will start thinking, oh, why am I trying to be forced this meal down my throat? There must be something wrong. So your child has a psychology, and understanding the psychology of your child is very important. And it's not just when it has to do with other activity, even with the meal time. You must not do it anxiously, and you must not force feed. The arc about not force feeding is to watch and see how they receive that meal and how your body gestures are. So if you want your baby, you can start rhymes. I know when you become a parent, you become a lot of things. You can sing rhymes, you can show that it is okay to eat a particular meal if you want your child to eat it. You can speak about it. Oh, this is how we drink water because water is safe. Your mommy is drinking water. I'm drinking. Water is healthy. You need to find a way to show your child that they are safe, because children are built around attachment and, and security. They need to feel a sense to be securely attached. The moment they are not in, they're insecurely attached to you, you would find them being clingy, and you will find them being uneasy. But when you are able to create a sense of secure attachment by not showing anxiety, I know it's sometimes difficult, but you need to try to show, and to try to show, and just give me a minute, please. Let me try and get the link for the mothers to join in, because I don't know why they are not joining in. Okay, so moving on. So you must understand the role that anxiety plays, and you must understand that your child needs to like that meal to some extent for them to receive it, because obviously it's something new, right? You don't want to force feed, even you as as an adult. If someone gives you something that you don't really like, will you take it again? You won't. So it's just for you to observe that. So number one, arc, don't be anxious. Number two, try to observe your child's reception of that meal that you're trying to introduce. And then this is for the breastfeeding mothers. You must consider something I call breastfeeding scheduling. You must consider what I call breastfeeding scheduling. This is too tight on my head, so sorry, I had to breathe a bit. So you must consider what I call breastfeeding scheduling, because, and it's not just about breastfeeding scheduling, it's about meal time. So let's say you used to feed your baby 5 times in a day with breast milk. Let's assume that's what it used to be. You used to feed your baby 5 times in a day, right? And it was breast milk. Don't do it abruptly. Don't start out your winning journey abruptly, or thinking that you will just stop entirely, because obviously, what will your baby eat? Or you used to use stop formula. What will your baby eat if you just stop breastfeeding? And you need to ask yourself the question: what if my baby does not like the new period I want to do? You know, what if my baby does not like the orange juice or vegetable I'm trying to make for them, period I'm trying to make for them? You need to consider that, because, and even if they do, what quantity can your baby eat to satisfaction? So you cannot decide to go into weaning abruptly by just cutting off breast milk. Breast milk still has to be in the picture. So start by replacing your feeding time with solids. And it doesn't even need to, you don't even need to completely replace it. Just maybe in between. Say if you used to feed your baby for 30 minutes, right? Assuming, because obviously can, like, one breastfeeding time might not take up to that, but if you used to do the breast milk for 30 breastfeeding, I mean, for 30 minutes, what you can do now is to, maybe you feed the baby for 15 minutes, and then the other, that, okay, somehow your baby has eaten something that they are used to, then you can now introduce a solid. And when I talk about introduction of solid, people wonder, oh, what is it? So if you are wondering what solid to introduce, wait till the end of this webinar. Don't run away, because there's something at the end of this webinar. I'm just going to share with you basic arc on how to navigate breast milk weaning, like taking your baby off breast milk. So I've said anxiety, meal type, and I've also said that scheduling. Then there is also the consideration of observation. So observation falls into if your baby likes the food or not, but it's not just about them liking it. If you feed your baby a particular meal and you see that, because some meals come with allergies, in all sincerity, and we don't know allergies until we don't know that we have allergies to a particular thing until we are exposed to those things, right? So if you're feeding your baby something and you notice an allergy reaction almost immediately. That's why sometimes when people come on the group to say, oh, they had an allergic rash or they had rash, and most of the rashes are usually for me allergic ones, which is due to something new that the mother has introduced, not necessarily to the child, but to themselves, and the baby feeds it through the breast milk. So it results in an allergy because people react to things or meals differently. So you find that your child has reacted to a particular thing that you have not really been able to track. So the observation with weaning is not just about whether your baby likes it or not. It is about the reactions that the meal might bring out, also about the stool consistency. So check out the stool, or the if your baby is having bowels, or the noise that comes out of your baby's bowels as a result of this new meal, and the discomfort that might come with it. So you have to observe it and be able to tell, oh, should I continue with this or not? And having this conversation, I know it is a lot. I can tell you for a fact that it is a lot. It's a lot. So the only thing I always tell parents is that remember that you are not alone. And secondly, apart from you remembering that you are not alone, find a support group. So if you are watching this webinar and you are not a part of any support group, I'm going to leave the link on after I end this live webinar. You can go and check it out and click and request, and we would add you to our support group. Then also, as a parent, when you signed up to become a parent, you may not have known that it requires a lot of looking after. It requires a lot of work, and it requires your commitment. So one of the commitments is paying attention to the new meal that you have introduced to your child, because it might result in something serious. So the four acts I've mentioned four acts, and then I'm going to go and try and break down. I'll try and break down the um, kind of solids, and then I will now share with you. Um, Apart from breaking down, so I'll now share with you how you can, check the consistency, how you can change the consistency of the puree eventually when they start growing and all of that. Then I will now share with you how to introduce water, how to avoid allergies, and how to introduce proteins and other things. So stay with me. At the end of this webinar, there is a giveaway for participants, and I hope you grab it because I don't do that often. So I hope you would stay till the end so that you can grab it. Anyways, moving on. Can someone, if you're hearing me, drop for me in the comment section at least one app that I have mentioned that mothers can use to wean their babies? If I don't get that message in the comment, then I will know that you guys are not with me. I had said that as you're joining in, let me know where you're joining in from. So I need to see that my participants are live and they are here with me, and I'm not just speaking to myself. Yeah. Um, can I know where you're joining me from, please? And can I know at least one of the acts that I have mentioned that mothers can use to wean their babies? I'm waiting for the comment, and I'll post the comment to let you know that I've seen it. So I'm waiting. Hi Toki, I can see you just joined in. So you didn't hear any of the acts that I mentioned. Okay. Watching from Benin. Thank you for joining. So did you hear any of the act that I mentioned that mothers can use to win? And are you a mother? Share with me, Toki. Are you currently a mother that is considering breast milk weaning? Yeah. Are you a mother who is considering breast milk weaning? Share with me. Let me know. Yes, okay. Fantastic. So, can you also share with me if you heard any of the acts that I mentioned that mothers can use? as they are considering weaning their babies. You heard of allergies, okay? What I said about, so I'm going to take it from there. At least you heard some part. What I said about allergy was when I said one of the act of weaning is when you introduce a new meal or you introduce a particular solid for your child, you must be observant. So for easy winning, you have to be observant. Observant because we don't know that we have an allergy until we are exposed to a particular meal. We never know. So it happens with your child. And that's why sometimes in the community, when mothers come to say things like, oh, my baby has a rash, we start to find out, even if it is an allergic rash, based on an introduction of a new thing, that it's not necessarily like, oh, the baby was the only one who took it. It was maybe through the mother and the baby took it in through breast milk, right? So usually we'll try to track to understand what rash it is, if it happened abruptly or if it happened after an introduction of a particular thing that the baby is reacting to. Some babies react to soya meal, some soya beans, some babies react to millet. So everyone has allergies, like to some extent. Some don't really have serious allergies, obviously, but some people have allergies. So with weaning, you are not just looking out for um because there was a part where I mentioned check if your baby likes the meal or not before you continue. So when you are observing, it's not just observing to see if your baby likes it. You are observing to see thereafter 2 hours after you've introduced that meal, 3 hours, a day after, what has happened? How's the stool consistency? How's the bowels? How is the skin? How is the baby reacting to that? If everything is okay at the time, then you know that okay. First of all, so before we even get to the part, because that's why in the part where I said 4 acts that you can use for the that you can use to win a baby. I had mentioned number one, anxiety. And if you're just joining in, I'm sorry. I may have to recap again, but I'm just going to be repeating most of the things I've said before. So I've said that that anxiety that mothers have when trying to do something new with a baby can be a problem. So you need to curb anxiety by not approaching that with anxiety or seeking to do it abruptly or seeking to do it like, oh, let's do it immediately. Because if you say you want to cut your baby off breast milk immediately without, doing it systematically and gradually, right? You are you are going to have to ask yourself, what would my baby eat? So your baby is more used to either formula or breast milk, assuming you're not exclusively breastfeeding. So your baby is either used to those two things, and then you want to now go and introduce solid, then you want to now cut those two things off entirely. How are you going to do it? You have to do it in a more calm way without force feeding. And one of the ways of doing it in a calm and not anxious manner is by observing. So you can say, let's say you are eating a particular fruit, and then your baby it's time for you to win your baby. You can give it out to your baby and see their receptiveness. If they receive it and they eat it, you can see from their gesture. Another act that I mentioned was, you as a mother, you need to show and exhibit your gesture that the food is safe and it is okay. You need to speak it out. You need to say it out. You don't it's not easy, but a lot of times that's what when I said, oh, parents become different things during parenting. We become dancers, we become comedians, we become every other thing just because of parenting and childcare. So you need to say it out. For example, egg is good for you, fruits are good for you, fruits are healthy, they help you fight bacteria, they help you, just say it regardless of whether your baby understands what you're saying or not. You have to say it and you have to show that it is safe. Okay, so I spoke about secure attachment. And what I spoke about with secure attachment is the moment your baby senses that you are anxious about anything that you're trying to do for them, they will start seeking to be safe. It's a normal child psychology that happens with every child. They'll start seeking to be safe. They'll start trying to make sure that everything is fine. So sometimes you see them very fearful, you see them crying. At that point, you don't want to force feed. No, you don't want to force feed. Please, if you are joining in, let us know where you're joining in from. And thank you for joining. So you don't want to force feed at that time. You want to take a step backward and observe again. Observe and either not give that meal at that time, or just try something else, or just leave it for another period where you are eating a different meal, or another period where you can decide and say, okay, let's try out carrot puree, or let's try out avocado puree, or let's try out mashed beans and mashed sweet potatoes. Let's try out this, let's try out that. Let's just try out different things. So it is easier to do that than to just stand up and start saying, "Oh, my baby's not eating, so come here." Because I don't know why mothers force feed. Like, I think force feeding is stressful for you and also stressful for the baby. And then you find the baby screaming, and you're like, "Oh, no matter the age, even if your baby is 2 years old, 3 years old," because I know that toddlers are even worse with feeding. No matter the age, no child should be force fed, because it can lead to the child choking, and it can result in more serious and grave consequences for you. So you may want to approach it with calmness. So now let's talk about the different types of um, meals that you can introduce to your child. So the solids, please let us know where you're joining from. Thank you for joining in. Let us know where you're joining from. So you can introduce solids, and for me, I always advise parents to begin by introducing one single cereal. Don't mix it, right? Because you can only now try different ones. Because when you try different ones, you can now know which one after they have rejected a particular one. Not where you say you buy different cereals and you just use them randomly. No, you can try out, let's say, the normal maize cereal or something like the grains, or you try out porridge, or something that can has the right nutrient. Because remember, when you are replacing solids, your baby has to eat something that will provide them with the nutrient the breast milk was providing them. Yeah, so you must know that for a fact, that when you are you know introducing your solids must have the nutritional value. That is why when we talk about the hygienic part of introduction of solid, we always advise parents to make sure that your meals are fresh. The meals that you're trying to make for your baby are fresh. They are prepared in an hygienic situation, and they are clean, to avoid causing more infectious circumstances, or making them lose the nutritional value in that particular solid that you are trying to introduce. So this is for mothers who try to bring in what's this thing called, who try to bring in fresh food, right, for introduction of solids. It's not necessarily for cereal, because if you want to introduce cereals, maybe it's already processed. So all you just need to do is to make sure that your utensils, or the plates and the spoons you want to use for the baby, is well cleaned and sterilized before you use it. So there are so many aspects of weaning, and I'm spending time now to say these stages and the hacks. And if you don't take anything away from this session, thank you, Nadim. If you don't take anything away from this session, at least take the fact that, thank you, Nadim. Take the fact that you must approach the winning process with less anxiety. You must do it systematically, and you must be observant, and you must also consider reducing the schedules. Say, because one of the examples I gave was, say your baby used to feed 5 times. This is for people who joined in late. Used to feed 5 times in a day, like breast milk. So instead of seeking to just cut off the whole breast milk feeding or cereal feeding, depending if you're not exclusively breastfeeding, obviously, instead of seeking to do that, thank you, Nadim. Instead of seeking to do that, what I would advise you to do is to replace I'd say, one of the feeding time with breast milk, or cut the feeding time, divide the feeding time into two. feed your baby with breast milk. Say if you used to do for 15 minutes, feed them with breast milk for 7 minutes, and you know that at least they have something to eat, because your baby might not take the new solid all at once. You need to be prepared to understand that rara, it's not going to happen. Your baby is not going to, your baby might even look at you and say, this woman, if like say, no, say now breast milk where I want the suck, So you just I'm sorry, they will say that, but I'm just making jokes. So you must consider that. Then your period can be a combination of carrots, potatoes, bananas, avocado. You have so many things to convert into period. That's why I'm saying wait till the end of this webinar for the Ogbonge giveaway I'm going to give today. And I'm going to try and see if I can find the link to drop in the comment section. Let me have a look, because we need. Okay, let me move on. So for introduction of proteins, because like I said, when your baby is weaning, you must understand that their new milk must have a great aspect of the nutritional value that was in the breast milk. You must consider that. So one of the things that you want to consider is the introduction of protein. And protein can be in plant. You can use plant-based protein, but also it's still safe to give animal-based protein to your baby. But you need to be careful because of your baby choking, because obviously, especially between 5-6 months, your baby has not still learned or gotten the chewing skill yet. That is why you have to do it small. Your baby has not still gotten that chewing skills yet, so you have to be careful. So what you need to do is introduce your protein source and match it. Make sure your meat is mashed. 6 months is still okay, so just ensure that your meat is finely mashed and soft enough for easy chewing. Because if you notice, if you are feeding your 6 month old meat that is even finely chopped, sometimes they just leak out the sweetness and then bring it out and keep for you. That's enough. Just don't try to say, oh, they're not eating the fiber or the it's not just about meat alone. It's about every other period that we try to make for babies. Sometimes they just leak alone and remove the fiber or the shaft and keep, and we feel like, oh, they've not had the real nutrient. But I think that's enough, right? And you need to understand that there might be a problem that might come up with choking if your baby takes on something that is not finely mashed enough. It can become, because obviously their organs are still very small, so you need to be careful with the protein. Then you must consider your traditional grains like millets, and these millets are very obviously, millet is very healthy, but you need to look out for allergies. It's important, it's good to try it out, so you can include the grains, especially when you're going to go and say you're trying to do pap. I see a lot of mothers do pap and they mix pap with millet and some other stuff. Sometimes I even see them mix rice. I don't know how that works, but whatever mixture you want to do, make sure that it is safe. And hi Ola, it's good to have you. Yeah. So make sure that thank you for joining. I'm seeing a lot of people on the live. Thank you for joining. Please let me know where you're joining us from, and let me know if the session is beneficial to you so far. You can watch the replay later, but so far I'm still breaking down how to crack the arc for breast milk weaning for new mothers. Thank you for joining, Ola. Okay, so moving on, I was talking about introducing grains, and you just have to watch it. Just have to be observant. You can consider exploring different vegetables. You can use your spinach, your pumpkin, okra. Just make sure that they are finely, mashed, so that it doesn't bring out any problem of choking or putting you at arm's length with your baby. Like I've said repeatedly, be cautious with things that can bring about allergies, especially peanut butters, soya beans milk, all of those Thank you, Ola. Thank you, Ola. Thank you for joining in. So, all of those meals that can result in allergies, you have to be slow. Things that are commonly associated with allergies, obviously, soya beans milk, peanut butter, a lot of. Thank you, Bola, for joining in from IB. Thank you for joining in. So, you need to be very, very careful. You need to be very careful when you're introducing your solids. And for the texture, like I mentioned before, I said that, oh, your baby is not, able to chew yet. So you need to be careful and make sure that your solids are in pure form, good enough for swallowing, and that will avoid choking. However, as your baby grows older, say going into 8 9 months, you may now, because by that time their teeth are now beginning to grow a bit, and you want to start finding a way to encourage chewing. And as they become comfortable with the purees, you can now start chopping the textures. For example, if you want to get your baby to eat a vegetable without it being puree, you may have to, especially when it has to do with carrots. Carrots is actually more better when you boil it. You can boil it to softness, to be very soft, and you leave them to chew it. Same thing with your meat, same thing with your fish. Just make sure that it is soft enough for them to want to chew it, right? That way it starts encouraging them to chew. Now let's talk about the most important one, water. So, because you were exclusively breastfeeding and all, some mothers are worried. Oh, I didn't have to bother about what amount of water I should give my baby. I didn't have to bother about. Thank you for joining in. Please let me know where you're joining us from. Thank you for joining in. And so moving on. So most mothers used to be like, how can I introduce water now? When do I know that my baby has enough water to avoid constipation, or just to make sure that my baby is drinking well? So offer small sips of water with meals. So when you are giving your breast, your not breast milk, your solids, you know, just 2 teaspoons, 3 teaspoons of water in between, and you just keep your breast milk or formula as the primary source of water, right? But you may have to sometimes give them water in a small container, like say there are these feeding bottles that are appropriate for 8 months and 9 months, not the very small ones for infants. You can give them water in those this thing to encourage. So, like I always tell parents, if you had followed our child development series, you would have seen where I talked about taking advantage of situations to create learning, motor skill learning for your child. This is an example. So when even with drinking of water, you can start encouraging babies doing things independently by giving them a small bottle, a small container of water that they will drink, and they will do it by themselves. So before they even turn 1 year, they are independently doing things by themselves. Even with the chewing, it is a way of creating development for your child. So you have a role as a parent to play, and the work is much. I'm sorry, there's no way out. The moment you give birth to a child, there is work to be done. And if you don't do the work, other parents who are putting in the work, you would see it and you start thinking, oh, there's one magic they're doing. There's no magic like that. It's just the intentionality of being involved in the day-to-day experience of your child. And it starts even with the winning journey. So for the meal frequency, I've already mentioned that in this conversation over and over and over again, that you can start giving your solid just once a day. You don't have to feed your child with solids for the rest of the day, even if they are 8 months old. And even if you want, even if they're 9 months, 10 months, your child doesn't necessarily have to eat solids all through the rest of the day. Because sometimes I see parents say, is the only cereal that you be eating? No, no, no. It can be they make it very paranoid. Something that's not that serious. They make a big deal out of it. I just feel like being patient and systematic with the approach would also help. And one of the ways you can do that is to at least once a day is okay for your child to eat solid, and let them keep taking the breast milk or formula. Then, like I said repeatedly, watch for responsive feeding. The moment your child eats a particular thing and they like it, don't fail to always put that thing at least within the week, twice or 3 times. Let them eat it and enjoy it. I'm not saying that obviously you have to try different things, but the moment they respond to a particular thing, because children would not always like everything. So this is where I say that before I say the last point, which is what I've already mentioned, considering the hygienic environment that you are preparing the meal for your baby. So this is where I talk about trying out different meal types to understand, to let your baby, to give your baby a chance, to give you a chance, not your baby, to give you a chance to know which meal that your baby likes. And this is where I'm going to have to talk about the giveaway. So hang on a minute. Give me a second. I'm going to paste the link. Hang on. Give me 1 minute, please. Just hang on a minute. I should have kept that link closer to me. But it's fine. I'm going to find it now. Yeah, found it. So I'm going to paste this link right now in the comment section, and I'm going to open up the sales for this book to just 1,000 naira. So anyone who buys this meal plan is selling at 4,000, and I'm giving a whooping sum of, I'm giving a whooping almost 80% discount on the meal plan book. That meal plan book contains varieties of different meal types that you can try out, so you don't run out of ideas when you are trying to consider different meal types. And the meal plan is, the meal types are not just only for babies, for you as a pregnant mother, postpartum, and then there are bonus information about weaning and all of that. And the moment you buy this book, I'm gonna try and open it up to 1,000 naira. The moment you buy it and I receive that you've bought it, I'm going to send you a free step-by-step easy weaning guide. So you have 2 free giveaways today. So I'm going to leave the link. So if you see it, I'm also going to paste the link in the community. I will encourage you to make that purchase. I'm going to change it on. Let me do it right now. I'm going to edit. Let me do it right now. I'm going to edit the price to 1,000 naira. It goes back to 4,000 naira after tonight. It goes back to 4,000 naira after tonight. So if you're going to purchase it, run along now and do it. So I have done that. I've changed it to 1,000 naira. So if you check that link, let me view public link. Yes, I've changed it to 1,000 naira, 1,000 naira. So go ahead now and rush and make a purchase. I want to thank you for joining in, and this is a time for me to take questions. If you have questions, please drop for me your questions in the comment section right away. Momo Bolanle, Ola, Okpeoluwa, please ask your questions. Good evening, ma. Yes, good evening, Toki. If you have a question, I'm happy to take your question now on breast milk weaning. Ola, are you still there with us? Bolanle, are you still there with us? I'm taking questions now. I'll leave the room open for 2 minutes. If I don't get questions, then we'll end this webinar today. And the moment you make a purchase of the meal plan book, I will get the notification and I will send you a free step-by-step guide for weaning. It's free. So you must purchase the book first. And I'm opening it up for just 1,000 naira till tomorrow morning. I'll open it up for 24 hours so I'm going to close it by tomorrow evening. So if I were you, I'll take advantage of this because I've never done this before. I would always try to sell this at the price that it is worth. Okay. Ola is asking a question. Good evening, ma. What can be done if my baby refuses to eat any other food aside the breast milk? Okay. Thank you, Ola, for your question. How old is your baby, Ola? Please, can you share with me? How old is your baby? Okay, 7 months. Okay, so let's assume you exclusively breastfed and you are trying to transition into solids from 6 months. Let's assume. Okay, I'll answer your question next. Okay, so um for your baby that's refusing to eat any other food except breast milk, you have not tried out, I'm sorry to say, you haven't tried out different other meal types, because the truth is you might be giving your baby something that they are not so comfortable with. That's one. Secondly, your baby not eating a bowl of food does not mean that they are not collecting solids. Even if your baby is eating 2 spoons, accept that process and try again. Thirdly, don't approach that feeding time with anxiety. Ola, I hope you are hearing me. Don't try and say, oh, your baby did not collect this, so you're just going to leave it. So you can always try again. Make sure that you are approaching that moment of trying to trying to feed your baby again with calmness, with a gesture showing that the food is nice and it's not just you trying to um get it, one of the chores they're trying to get done and dusted with and move on. And so if your baby doesn't want to eat, so you can move on. Just show that, oh, you want them to eat this meal by your gesture, by making the meal look like it is interesting. Don't make it look like it's one boring chore. So you might want to consider changing the particular meal that you are giving, the particular meal. That's why I'm advising you to go and buy that meal plan book now that is selling at 1,000. I've reduced it from 4,000 to 1,000. So you'll see the different meal types that you can try out for your baby. Don't approach it with anxiety. Do it patiently. And even if your baby is taking 1 or 2 spoons, don't make a bowl of solid. I'm assuming it's cereal that you're trying to give your baby. Don't make a bowl of cereal. If your baby is taking 3 spoons of cereal, kudos, you are good. You are good, right? You are not um it's not something bad, in all sincerity. So you can try again the next day. Try again gradually the next day. Before you know it, now your baby go dey chop the cereal pass you. So it's a systematical thing. It doesn't happen abruptly. I hope I have been able to answer your question. So please don't seek that it's going to happen immediately, because obviously your baby is so used to breast milk for the last 7 months. So the same way they got used to breast milk, they will eventually get used to solid. So be patient with your baby, and it's okay if they take just 2 to 3 spoons of whatever it is that you're trying to introduce to them. I hope I've answered your question, Ola. If you have any other question or need to clarify, you can ask again. Let me take Toki's question. Thanks for your time. Please, ma, I have 2 questions. Firstly, I noticed if I give my baby pap or Nutriben, he do vomit it. I don't know why. So it's vomiting meals is common with babies. It's very common. Most babies always vomit whatever it is, even breast milk. So what I would want to advise you to do, is it that it's only pap and Nutriben that you see your baby vomit? So when you are giving them breast milk, they don't vomit. When you give them, how old is your baby? By the way, Toki. So when you give them other things, they don't vomit. Then, if that is the case, you may have to focus on what they don't vomit, what they are not, what they are comfortable with, because it might just mean that they are not comfortable with that. Then, secondly, you must also check if your baby has been able to burp after feeding. If your baby didn't burp, they will vomit, and you must be sure that your baby has burped. So not burping is part of the things that might cause your baby to to vomit. But if you say they are vomiting just pap and nutrient and then they're always fine with other ones, then it might be the meal type. But if they're always vomiting all the meals that they have, then you might want to consider bobbing and not throwing them up and down after a meal, or not putting them in a distressed position. So those are the things that you might need to consider. So Ola, have I been able to answer your question? You haven't let me know if I've answered your question or not. Let me take Toki's second question. Is that secondly, what can be the cause of inflammable eardrum in babies? Inflammable eardrum. What does that mean, please? What I've never heard of that word, inflammable eardrum. What are the symptoms? What are the presentations, Toki? Your baby is 7 months too. So you haven't answered. I've asked a lot of questions, Okpelua. You haven't answered any. I need to understand to be able to help you better. I've never heard of the word inflammable eardrum, so I don't know what that is. So can you explain for me? I've asked you so many questions. I'm waiting for your responses. Oh, yes, ma, you have answered perfectly. Okay. Thank you, Ola. Toki, I'm waiting for your responses so that I can move on. I'm waiting for your responses. Okay. All right. So, Toki, I just checked up what you meant by inflammable eardrum. If your baby is having an infection in their ear, then you might need to go to the hospital to have them checked. I'm not going to wait for your response because it seems like you're not responding, because this webinar was supposed to be for just 30 minutes and we have tried to answer some of the questions. I would answer more questions in the community. And remember that the link for purchasing the meal plan book is currently open up until tomorrow by this time, and I'll close it and the price would go back to 4,000 naira. Okay, I'm going to answer it in a bit. We'll go back to 4,000 naira by tomorrow. So take your chance now and purchase that meal plan for your baby and for yourself. And then I'll get a notification and send you a free step-by-step guide that will help your winning journey. Okay, it says someone told me a doctor told her that they checked her baby's ear with an instrument and the doctor said the baby eardrum is inflammable. Okay, that the instrument that they use to check is red sign instead. Well, I don't understand what that is, but if the baby did have an inflammable eardrum by a doctor, it means probably the baby has an infection that is causing the swelling of the ear, the inner drum of the ear, and making the swelling. Most of the time swellings are usually are usually reddish, so it's making the swelling reddish. And if they're already seeing a doctor, I believe that they will probably get a proper healthcare solution to that problem. If you don't have any further questions, I may have to end this webinar now. What can be the cause of it? So yes, okay, I didn't answer that question. I'm not sure what the cause of it may be, but if the baby is not exclusively breastfeeding, it might lead to lower immunity in babies. Babies' immunity are usually basically coming from breast milk more. So if there is a low immunity, and then of course babies are still infants and a lot of their organs have not really developed, they are at risk of getting infections easily. That's why you have to be very careful to sterilize what they are using, what you're feeding them with. It is a lot of work. So when mothers don't do those precautions, you are leaving your baby at risk for viral infection. That's why you see a lot of babies cough or have catarrh and all of those. So it could have just been as a result of anything that could have led to that baby having that infection of the ear. So literally it's something that can pop up through any means. It could have been, oh, maybe a lack of enough breast milk to build up good immunity to avoid any kind of infection. The baby was exposed to a very serious infection that the immunity of the baby could not just protect the baby against. And I believe that because they are seeking professional help, they will get help. Thank you so much for joining. And I hope next week we'll get enough responses for us to talk about how to deal with the harmattan season as mothers and for our babies. Thank you for watching up until this time. I will see you guys on the next. Goodbye.